David Leopold is the former president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. He joins me live from Cleveland. David, we know what President-elect Donald Trump has said. We know what he has tweeted. But does anyone really have any idea what his deportation plan will actually entail?
Well, you know, there's an article by a very good writer named Asieh in the New York Review of Books. And her first point in an article entitled "Autocracy Rules for Survival" is that, you know, you've got to listen to what the autocrat said. And Donald Trump speaks and thinks like an autocrat, and take him at his word. And he has talked about mass deportation. He has talked about splitting up families. He's talked about deporting dreamers. Those are young immigrants who came here at the hand of their parents. So we have to take him at his word. And I don't see any softening. To the contrary, he has doubled down on his call to build a wall. He has appointed very dangerous white supremacists to high positions in the White House. He has appointed Jeff Sessions to run the Department of Justice, which has enormous power over immigration courts and immigration enforcement. So I'm taking him at his word. I think that he is going to try to make good on his promise to deport 11 million people.
And he seems to believe that Mexico, for some reason, will still reimburse him for the cost of this wall or this fence he keeps talking about. But is that really realistic?
Look, Donald Trump is a racist. He came down, when he announced his candidacy, he called Mexicans rapists and murderers. The wall is a symbol. Look, it is not meant to keep people out or keep people in. The wall is a symbol. The border, the American border in the South, is at net zero illegal immigration. Take a look at what the Pew Foundation found. The undocumented immigration has stabilized over the last several years. So we are not getting new undocumented immigration. This wall is a fallacy, and the whole idea here is a symbol. The symbol is to keep out Latino immigrants. It's to keep out the Browning, if you will, of America. That's what's at bottom here. That's what they're talking about.
David, but what about the financial cost? I mean, this is a man who claims he ran, you know, a successful business for many successful businesses for years. So if you're a successful businessman, you should really think about the financial cost and
Absolutely.
the impact on the economy.
Absolutely. You're talking about, at this point, the government appropriates roughly $7 billion a year to finance the border guards, the Border Patrol, and the inspectors. What would it cost to deport 11 million people? The Center for American Progress tells us that it would cost about $115 billion. The American Action Foundation, a conservative institution, estimates it at $240 billion over 20 years. It costs roughly $41 billion to run the Department of Homeland Security. So these numbers, the cost of deporting people, and that's just the cost of detaining and deporting. Like was pointed out in the earlier segment, coming into this, what about the economic cost? What about the social cost? What about the cost of a child being ripped out of his or her classroom? The cost of a child whose parent, U.S. citizen parent, a U.S. citizen child whose parent is ripped out of the home. These are the social costs that Donald Trump doesn't quite talk about. The economic cost is bad enough, and it's unreachable.
Understood. Understood. David, we'll have to leave it there. David Leopold, thanks for being on the program.